Hi, this is Peter Woolfolk speaking. Now, first of all, thank you so very much for listening to the podcast. Now, I am very excited to let you know that the podcast is now available on Amazon Alexa. You know the drill. Simply say, Alexa, play Public Relations Review Podcast, and she'll take it from there. And again, thank you for listening. And if you enjoy the program, please become a subscriber. Now, on to the podcast.
Welcome. This is the Public Relations Review Podcast, a program to discuss the many facets of public relations with seasoned professionals, educators, authors, and others. Now, here is your host, Peter Woolfolk.
Welcome to the Public Relations Review Podcast and to our listeners all across America and around the world. Now, when you hear announcements about a research authority, seldom will thoughts about their public relations activities come to mind. Well, believe it or not, research authorities are plenty busy preparing outreach to their many audiences and numerous media. My guest today is Adrienne Grimes, who joins us today from the great state of South Carolina. She is the Director of Marketing and Communications for the South Carolina Research Authority. She notes that some people think we are researchers for the state. They are actually the business technology authority that fuels South Carolina's innovation economy. Now, with that in mind, Adrienne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Peter. Glad to be here.
Well, first, why don't you give us an overview of what the South Carolina Research Authority actually does?
Okay, at the South Carolina Research Authority, we fund and accelerate innovation, which creates jobs and salary increases and all of the positive things for our state's economy. Our mission is actually fueling South Carolina's innovation economy. And we do that in 4 ways, which attributes to us having 4 programs. So we have 4 programs, one, and I'll go in alphabetical order because it is a bit complex. So we have academic innovations. That's the team that works with researchers at our research universities. We have 3 in South Carolina, University of South Carolina, Clemson University, and the Medical University of South Carolina. So that team works with the research and developers at those research universities. And they're working on research projects that become medical devices, products, and I'll give you an example. We have an exciting program that our academic innovations team is working on at the Medical University of South Carolina. It's a feeding system for premature babies. And so that's just an example of the kinds of things that they work on. And so our academic innovations team is supplementing this development through funding and mentorship to bring those things from an ideation stage, from an idea to a product that eventually becomes commercialized and gets FDA approval or licensing. So it's exciting stuff. It's sort of like the early stage of business development that comes out of academia. And then we have another team called SC Launch, and that's the team that works with our startups, our technology startups. And so we provide grant funding and investment funding to technology startups in 3 sectors: information technology, advanced manufacturing, and life science. So the technology startups, as long as they're based in South Carolina and they're in one of those 3 sectors, they can apply for our launch program, which is an entrepreneur startup mentorship program. Mm-hmm. And so again, we move those startups sort of from infancy to being investable. We invest in them, we provide the seed investment, and then they exit our program successfully and go on to receive follow-on funding from other investors. So it's exciting stuff, and all of this creates jobs and opportunity and lifts South Carolina up as a place for innovation to take place. Our 3rd program is SC Industry Solutions, and that team goes to the industry, the big guys like South Carolina is home to Boeing and Volvo and Michelin and Mercedes-Benz and, I can't think of others, Bosch, those types of big industries. we go to them and we find out what their technological needs are because they all have them. And then we pair them with our startups that actually provide those technological needs. So that helps the startup grow, right? And two, it helps them grow their business and add staff and mature. But it also helps that industry partner because now they have access to this technology, expertise that solves a lot of the solution problems that they have. So they have that startup providing the solution that they need. And then lastly, we have SC Facilities, and we manage 6 innovation centers around the state. 3 of them are tied to the research university. So we have an MUSC, Medical University of South Carolina Innovation Center. And inside of those innovation centers are researchers, developers from our academic institutions, but also the startups that need wet lab space and development space. So we're really a group of 4 different programs, all doing something to advance innovation in our state. And our vision is for South Carolina to become a top innovation destination. And so, our mission feeds right into that through these programs. So it's exciting, it's a lot, it's complex, but it's a good thing for South Carolinians as well as people outside of South Carolina to know about, because before I started working here, I didn't even know all of this innovation development was happening in the state. So we have a lot of opportunity to tell a great story.
Well, now that you've mentioned that, let's actually do that, because you've mentioned 4 different areas that you function in. And let's talk about the importance of your letting not only just the general public know, but also industry people know, and why is that important?
It is important because I'll take, for instance, our SC Launch program. It's important that we have the right kind of startups applying to our program. So we have to keep our pipeline healthy. And so we have to tell the story about how we are helping startups, how we're on the cutting edge of helping our startups to mature to the next level. The pandemic hit all of us. And last year we had startups that were maybe doing one thing that were able to pivot their operations. One of those startups is Zverse. They're now the leader in face shields because they have a 3D printing operation. They weren't making shields before, but when the pandemic hit, they were struggling as a business, but they pivoted. They're one of our companies that we fund and support. We worked with them and found them additional partners to help them with some of the materials that they need. And now they're one of the leading face shield providers in the nation. So that's an example of how we are helping startups, in this case, move from struggling during the pandemic to now the nation's leader of Zverse. I was watching TV the other day and I saw a Zverse commercial in the middle of a movie, and I was like, wow, that's one of our companies. It's, right out on Bluff Road in Columbia, South Carolina. So it just speaks to the importance of the Research Authority and what we're doing in this state.
Well, what I hear right now are 2 opportunities for PR to kick in on that. One, that is to reach out and identify or let small startups know that you have the SC Launch program so that they can apply. That'll keep your pipeline full. And then on the opposite side of that, then to let the public know what some of these research startups have done and the success that they've had and how it applies to their how they benefit from these startups. How do you go about doing that?
So, I firmly believe that storytelling is the best type of PR and or marketing. I think storytelling is what gets people's attention. And so in working with the media outlets in our state, and some of them still don't understand what we do, we look for stories to tell. We talk about a problem that's been happening, whether it's like when we have a startup that's providing something for telehealth is booming right now because people are seeking care in the safety of their homes, and the technology is allowing that to happen. Well, one of our startups is developing home monitoring tools that are needed, that doctors and healthcare providers need. And so we're looking for opportunities to tell those kinds of stories, because the media, we're hearing every day what's happening with the vaccine. We're hearing every day what's happening with the cases. But I'd like for us to hear more of the stories about what's being done sort of backstage. Everyone is talking about telehealth. How is that happening? Who are the players in this space that is helping people with COPD or blood pressure issues? We're playing in that space and actually funding companies to develop those cuffs and those things that people stick on their arms to monitor their heart rate and blood pressure and those kinds of things. So just really trying to work with the media to help them understand that there are lots of stories to be told. Now, the media is busy. I used to be a part of the media in my early days, so I know that you have to frame your story and come to them with your story. So I just look for opportunities on a daily basis to find a story that would be interesting to a media outlet. One of the ways that I do that is I try to figure out what's happening in that outlet's backyard. If you're TV, everybody's on the internet now, so the geographical limitations have been removed, but TV still has viewership and viewing areas. And so when I'm working with a media outlet, I want to look for the story that's happening in their market or their viewing area, because they're going to be more interested in that story. Online is different. There are no boundaries or geographical limitations there. So just really looking for the important stories about this little company that was small and sort of teetering, and they knew they were working on something great out of their, it's like the Apple story, working out of your garage on something great, and working with SCRA, the research authority, and how we've helped that move sort of out of the garage, that neat idea that someone had. And now, it's something that, patients are wearing on their arm, and it's helping them stay healthy. So those are the kind of stories that I'm identifying out of our programs every day. We have our facilities program, another company called Vicor. They are working on antibody testing now for COVID-19. They are a research operation that was possibly going to have to leave our state because we didn't have the facilities that they need. So our facilities department stepped up and provided the specific type of lab space that they needed so that they can be successful. And now Vicor has grown to 400 employees around the country. 200 of them are in our state. So as we are partnering with these startups and these researchers and developers and doing what we do, jobs are being added, salaries are being increased, because the innovation sector salaries tend to be higher. And so that's really lifting up our entire state when it comes to our state's economy. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
One of the things, as I'm listening to you, I'm just starting to think in terms of when I hear of telehealth piece there, that it's also a visual thing too, where people can use certain pieces of equipment that transmits the information to wherever it goes to. That sort of visual thing, have you considered or have you had any sort of media tours that come in, that you can bring in to go into the labs or workshops of some of these places that are developing this technology?
Not since I've been here. So I've been with the Research Authority since April. So I am new, full disclosure, I am new. But I actually came from the Medical University of South Carolina, where I worked very closely with telehealth. So I have a pretty comprehensive background with telehealth. When I worked at the Medical University of South Carolina, we did exactly what you said. We did have community awareness days because more people know about telehealth now, thanks to the pandemic, than pre-pandemic. Telehealth has been out there for a while, but it's still sort of, people hear it and go, what is that? Is it telehealth? That same thing as telemedicine. So when I was employed by the Medical University of South Carolina, we did have community awareness days where we invited the media to come in. We actually did live telemedicine demonstrations we would go in one room with wherever the provider was. A good example would be a pediatric critical care specialist who is in Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston, South Carolina, but the child had, say, a skating accident in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And the hospital in Myrtle Beach doesn't have the level of care needed for this critical, head trauma. So that's a perfect scenario. It happens every day here in South Carolina because we're a partially rural state. Child falls, hits head in the driveway, critical situation. Parents take the child to the local hospital in Myrtle Beach. That critical care specialist is just not employed there.
Mm-hmm.
So they immediately, within like 8 minutes, they connect to the Medical University of South Carolina, which is a major academic medical center with a full telehealth suite. And within 8 or so minutes, they're on the phone and live video with this child.
Mm-hmm.
And the critical care specialist at the Medical University is actually working with the local provider who is with the child in the room and guiding them through how to assess the child, look into their eyes, make, is the child conscious, checking all those things. And and that's so important because before telehealth, that child may have died or been severely debilitated because they didn't get the level of care needed in time. So now with telehealth, you've got the critical care specialist saying, okay, I think you can go ahead and admit the patient or get that kid on a copter and get them to us right away.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the technology behind all of those things, those monitors, those live video, those feeds, those secure networks that our startups are working on. It's very exciting. So whereas I was at Medical University of South Carolina actually seeing all this happen, it's really neat to be on the sort of the beginning side of all of that. And I'm going, oh, wow, this startup or this developer actually developed that thing that I saw being used. Mm-hmm. And so it's pretty interesting, even my personal journey, that I ended up here. And now I'm seeing how things are done and developed at this early stage. I've seen them in use, but now I'm seeing how a lot of them are developed. So that's pretty amazing.
Well, just listening to you tell that story and the fact that it does have some visual impacts, that's the sort of thing I think, obviously, it's particularly for TV and maybe some of the local medicals or statewide medical journals would like to, to know about and perhaps even do a story. But also the other thing I think about is that there are some in your state government there and legislative side of it, there are people who oversee medical facilities, and then providing them with a story of like this justifies, any tax benefits that they are providing to you and others. People see that, and that's a win-win situation for everybody.
It really is. Back to the Medical University of South Carolina and Clemson University and University of South Carolina, the three research universities, they're all public universities, so they are publicly funded by the state legislature. So they want to see where that money is going, like you said. They want to know that all of the appropriations that are going into these research universities, they get pretty excited to see that, wow, it's saving lives. They're funding Medical University of South Carolina with the telehealth equipment and setups and technology, and lives are being saved. People who had strokes in rural areas before telehealth were suffering the debilitating effects of stroke. But now with telestroke, which is a big, big program, South Carolina is one of the leaders in the nation for telestroke technology. Their dollars are helping people stay healthy, getting people care sooner than ever. And so the legislators want to know because they want to justify appropriating tax dollars, but also the public wants to know how their tax dollars are being used. And so there are lots of stories to be told, and we're relying on the media to help us tell those stories so that the public does know. We have our own outlet, all of our organizations now with technology. We can all have our own internal media centers where we're putting out content, but we're still relying on the media for sort of that broad distribution of the storytelling.
Again, as I'm listening to you, I may have mentioned earlier that I used to work on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. as a press secretary. And I would see, particularly when there's some legislation or somebody's asking for money, they might even bring in some people who benefited from some technology or program or experience that they had that was being funded, so that the members of Congress could see and hear for themselves how the money that they gave to this organization benefited the success and overall outcome. The two winners there are, well, three winners actually there are, of course, are the folks who are receiving the funding, the congressmen or members of Congress who were involved in it, because then now they can tell the folks at their states and around the country, here's how some of the money that we have, how we spend it, and here's the outcome of it. Those are the sort of things that obviously get people's attention, and it seems like you guys have your hands around this.
We do. We have a lot of opportunity as well, though. There are a lot of untapped stories that I'm just learning about that we need to be telling, and we're going to do that in a lot of ways. We have a lot of distribution points these days that we can use, so that's exciting. Mm-hmm. We started a CEO podcast just recently, the launch program, because we want startups to hear from other startup CEOs that have matured a bit, because that helps those startups and gives and encourages them sort of, the wins, the losses, the failures, the successes. And so we're just looking for any opportunity. Even being on your show today is exciting, because it's another opportunity for us to sort of explain what the South Carolina Research Authority is and how we're helping the innovation economy in South Carolina. South Carolina is not a place that you think of when you think of innovation. You think of Silicon Valley, and places like that. But we are doing great work here in our state and becoming well known because of the South Carolina Research Authority. Not all states have an operation like this one. And so it's very exciting to be in a state that recognizes that we're a place where research and development can bring things to market, to make money, to help people, to save lives, and all of those things.
Mm-hmm. I guess the other question that comes as I listen to you, do you pitch national media? Because, as you said, you've got a lot of great things going on down there. Do you pitch the national media, or do you engage, let's say, your local affiliate to help you pitch some of the national media on some of the successes that you're having down there, not only in terms of outcomes for patients, but also successes of new industries being launched, or the fact that large companies have partnered with some of the small organizations that you've developed? Have you guys pitched the national media on some of this?
I have not. The Research Authority has. I have not since I have been here, but I will be. It is on my list. I was fortunate to bring my own national media contacts with me, and we already had some here at the Authority. So that is a plan of mine as I dig deeper into what we're doing. I'm 6 or 7 months in, so I'm still learning.
Oh, okay.
But I'm seeing more and more opportunities to pitch national media as I find out, so we partnered with this, international company, and we did this thing for them. Mm-hmm. Well, there's an opportunity there.
Absolutely.
And one of the things we do in our industry solutions team, this team that partners the big guys with the startups, we provide relocation grants to get people to bring their operations to South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the ways we might be able to do that is to engage national media.
Absolutely.
So that people know what's happening in South Carolina, to encourage those companies to move here. Mm-hmm. So there are so many opportunities, so many things that we will be doing more and more of.
A couple of things. Here in Nashville, I had Meharry Medical College as a client, and several things happened. One was the fact that they were doing some research on AIDS, and they had really a lot of advanced things going on. And one of the guys, the guy who was doing it at the time, Dr. Childers, it just happened, he's back here now as the president of Meharry Medical College, and the new incoming administration has asked him for his resume to perhaps do some work for the new administration. But at the time, the research that he was doing on HIV/AIDS was rather new. So rather than just sending out a press release to the local newspaper, I actually called them up, let them know what was going on, and invited them up to have a tour to see the laboratory, understand what is going on, where we are versus other people, blah, 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 all that sort of thing. So rather than one reporter showing up, 5 people came, a reporter, several editors, and a photographer.
Wow.
And within 3 days, we had a front page story on that. So getting out of that mold of just sending the press releases, but having something solid that they can see, touch, and, as I say, kick the tires on it, really serves a very, very useful purpose.
And bringing it to life for them. You're right. I can remember taking a media person into the room where he could actually see, this was fortunately a very sick infant in the pediatric, they call it PICU, Pediatric Intensive Care Unit. And he gave a huge spread because he was inspired, you know? So anytime you can inspire a media person, you move from, you know, like you said, sending a news release to them to bringing them into a suite and them actually watching telemedicine take place on this really sick child that would not have been able to get that care without the telehealth, because sometimes you can't move. This child couldn't be moved. So it wasn't like they could transport the child to where the child needed to go. So using the telemedicine capabilities, they were able to bring the specialist to the child using telemedicine and work with the people in the room very carefully. Do this, move the arm, lift the arm, place it. And it was just amazing. And I saw a lot of emotion there, and I thought, this is good. We're going to get, this is good. He was inspired. He may have even wiped a tear, but he did a big spread on what was happening, telemedicine and pediatric, because we touched a nerve in a positive way. So it is bringing it to life that helps you get the coverage that you need to tell that story.
Absolutely. When they have an opportunity to be involved in something they're interested in, good things normally happen.
And it's also finding that media. For me, at the Research Authority, it's finding the media outlets or the writers that are interested in what you're doing as well. And that's something that I'm working on each day, just to sort of build that repertoire of media outlets that are interested. So finding that, because it is a bit of a niche media, to find who's interested in information technology and advanced manufacturing and Industry 4.0, you know, those are things that I'm still learning about myself, but there are writers out there that are looking for those stories. And so we've got some great tools and vendors, I won't name them because they're calling every day anyway, that do have some really slick dashboards now that you can start using that'll sort of help you find the media outlets that you want in your sectors. So we're fortunate to have the tools that we need to help us find those writers that are interested in what we're doing.
Well, let me mention this as sort of in closing, and I had an experience like that, and again, coming from Congress, I thought about things a little differently, and what I did was I looked for, in this particular case, there's a National Association of Education Writers, and like every national association, they have annual conferences. So what I did, I called them up and found out when they're going to have a call for papers, as all of them do, or how are you going to go about selecting people for various panels and workshops. And what I pitched to them was to maybe have certain members of Congress that can come speak on education issues on a larger scale. And they liked that idea. The same thing with Meharry Medical College actually tried to and did get a National Medical Writers Association to have an event on that campus where they brought the writers to the medical college, Meharry Medical College campus to discuss certain things, and then Meharry could have some of their docs on that panel and interact or invite docs to their sessions. That way, now you're bringing the people who write the stories with some of the people who are producing the stories. So those things work very, very well together.
Oh yes. That's you just did a whole win-win there, and that's a great opportunity for, like you said, the people coming in, and you is trying to get the word out about what was happening right there at the college. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, looking for those opportunities and looking for them still in the midst of the pandemic where you're limited, but there's still things that you can do using technology and also planning. We're all looking for this to end, right? And what we'll do when it does. So we're all sort of there mentally.
Well, Adrienne, let me say thank you. You've been provided us a very, very broad overview and insightful insight as to what you guys are doing down at the South Carolina Research Authority. And if you've got any closing remarks for our listeners, I'd like to hear from you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity of you letting us tell our story. There's a lot of work to do because a lot of people don't understand what we do. And like I said, our name is a little bit misleading. So I just appreciate the opportunity for you to allow me coming on here today to sort of explain it. And so my team and I work every day to try to do just that, explain what we do to people, to make it easy for them to understand, because that's going to benefit us in the long run, short run and long run.
Oh, great. Adrienne Grimes, thank you so very, very much for joining us today. And for our listeners, obviously, as always, thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, we'd like a great review from you. And of course, to let your friends know, and you too, please join us for the very next edition of the Public Relations Review Podcast.
This podcast is produced by Communication Strategies, an award-winning public relations and public affairs firm headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, this is Peter Woolfolk. First, let me say thank you so much for being a listener. Now, I want to alert you to our shiny new podcast website located at podpage.com. However, you can go directly to the podcast site located at publicrelationsreviewpodcast.com. There, you can contact me through email. You can leave a voice message. You can leave a review. You can read an episode blog and frequently learn about the podcast guests. You might also want to suggest podcast topic ideas or even suggest a guest. You can also let me know if you would like to receive our podcast listener logo that you can post on your social media. So I look forward to hearing from you about our new podcast website. Thank you so much for listening to the Public Relations Review Podcast, and have a great day.